Hi, my name is Gabby and I'm a crocheter. I've been crocheting for like the last 3 years now, and I'm also into like most forms of art, really, painting and writing and crafts, but I've been focused on crochet mainly for the last little while, and I've gained a lot of knowledge through experience and trial and error, and I was thinking that I might be able to have some helpful tips for people who are just starting to crochet. So I thought that I would start in this video to share things that I wish I would have known when I first started, and mistakes that I made, so that people who want to start crocheting, and some of these tips I guess could go for knitters too. I don't knit though. It might be helpful for them so that they don't have as much of a learning curve as I did. Yeah. I think I'm going to make more videos in the future that go a little bit more into depth on some of these topics. So I'm going to just kind of give a general for now, and then I'm going to go into more detail later about some of them. So I've been crocheting for about the last 3 years, and I've been posting on my Instagram, Honey Mountain Crochet, for I think like 2 years ago I started that. I've sold most of the things I've made, mostly in person or in a shop or at events, and some online, and I'm kind of trying to get more into the whole online shop thing right now. Yeah, I would consider myself like an intermediately advanced crocheter. I make a lot of things, mostly clothes. I also make like creatures sometimes, little amigurumi people. Anything really. Clothes and accessories and hats and anything I want, because I think it's really fun to create and it's fun to crochet and I really love it. And I like that I can do it anywhere at any time also. I'm going to share some tips that I think might be helpful. So I think a good place for me to start with this is just telling you about some of the biggest mistakes I think I made when I first started crocheting, and things that I would warn you to avoid. I think my first mistake I made when I first started was starting too complex without really understanding what I was doing, and not starting with simple enough projects. And I don't know if anyone else actually does this. Like when a lot of people want to learn how to crochet, they watch the basic videos first, but I kind of didn't do that. I did a little bit, but then I just went and tried to do this really complicated like lacy halter top, and it didn't really work out that well. So yeah, I would recommend just going and looking up videos of the most basic of the basics of how to crochet, and learn how to make a chain, learn how to do the single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, like the basic stitches. And once you're confident with those, then you can make them into something. But maybe don't start right away with like, I'm gonna make like a crochet purse right now. First, just learn how to do the stitches and learn what the names of the stitches mean and the different terminology, and then you can be more confident when you're actually making something. Another mistake I made was using the wrong size hooks. I mean, I knew I wasn't using the hook that they recommended, but I thought it didn't matter. And sometimes it doesn't matter as much. It depends on the project. But for things that you want them to be a specific size, like for some of the halter tops I was trying to make, it does make a difference. Because, you know, if the tutorial says for a size small halter top, you want to use a 3-point crochet hook, and I use a 4 one, it's going to come out way bigger and not fit me at all. For some things it doesn't matter as much, like things that aren't size specific, say if you wanted to make a purse or a scarf or a blanket, I mean, a blanket's a pretty big project, maybe. If you are just starting, it might be a little too time consuming. I'm not saying to make a blanket, but if you do stuff that it doesn't matter exactly what size it is so much, then that doesn't matter as much, and you can actually read on your yarn what hook size it recommends, if you want to go by that, for making something that it doesn't matter as much according to the tutorial what size it comes out as, if that makes sense. Another mistake I made was not securing the ends in properly, and I'm actually going to post a whole video about weaving in ends and securing ends and different techniques I like to use for different projects and different types of yarn. But I think what some beginners do and what I did is when you're done, just tie a knot, and that can be not the best for different reasons. It doesn't look nice. You're going to have some pieces poking out maybe, and it also might be more likely to unravel. I have this example. It's a purse I made around when I just started crocheting, maybe when I was a little bit more experienced. But I made it a while ago, and at first I was just making these squares, and I didn't really have a plan for them. So as you can see, all the ends are just kind of hanging out. I just tied a knot and left them, or I think for some I like crocheted a little chain and then tied a knot, and they're all just hanging out. And I use this purse like every day, and people tell me it looks cool because there's strings hanging out and it looks more rustic or something. So I don't really care. You should know that how you finish a project is really important, and how you sew the ends in is important, because like if you don't secure it really well and then you cut it short right close to where your stitches are, it could start to unravel your whole project. So you can look up ways to sew ends in, and I'm going to post a video of all the ways I like to do it, so you can see that as well. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you should never tie knots also. I think like it's okay to do it sometimes, but you should just know the difference and know why you might not want to, or know when it's not such a big deal. So another mistake I made was just not understanding what kind of yarn to use, and using weird combinations of yarn as well. I used wool to make a halter top one time when I was first starting, and it was really itchy. I combined cotton and wool and acrylic yarn, and that was weird because they all had different textures, and the cotton was super nice and soft and silky and flat, and the acrylic was kind of scratchy and super bulky, and then the wool was just scratchy wool, so it wasn't the best choice to combine those yarns. Now, I think with all of these mistakes I'm saying, or like crochet rules, I think that rules can be broken, and when you understand the rules, then you can break them. Because, you know, people do all sorts of funky things with like combining a bunch of different types of yarns into one item, and it looks really cool, and there's a bunch of different textures going on, but you've got to understand the yarn, because there's different reasons why you should choose certain yarns for different projects, and combining some types might not be ideal, because like I said, if you want to make something that's like really tight on your skin or a summer item, you don't want to use scratchy wool, because wool is very warm, which is why it's used for winter stuff. Some wool isn't as scratchy, it depends. And another issue with that can be washing, because wool, mainly wool, will shrink if you put it in hot washing machine and a hot dryer. It will shrink, and unless you've done that intentionally, you're probably going to ruin your item. And if you use cotton or something else like that that's plant-based, or acrylic, those can be washed in the washer and dryer. I mean, I recommend hand washing hand knits and crochets personally, just because it will make them last longer. But it's not as bad of a disaster if you wash those that way than wool. So you want to think about also, when you're choosing your yarns, how someone is going, or you, if you're just keeping it for yourself, how you're going to be able to take care of those pieces and wash them. And if you're using different fibers that require different care techniques, then that might not be the best choice. So that was my other mistake, ruining stuff in the wash. Like, I did make a sweater once where I used, I think it was like a cotton acrylic blend and wool, and then I put it in the dryer, and the wool totally just shrunk and it was way too small. But the parts where I used the other yarn on got all stretched out. So I basically just totally ruined it by doing that. So what I like to do for most of my projects, whether I use an animal-based or a plant-based fiber, is hand washing. So I just kind of let it soak in the sink and then rinse it out. What you also can do, if you're not into that, is put it in a laundry bag and put it in the washing machine on a cool, gentle setting. But it depends on the piece, so don't take my word for it. This is just kind of general advice. But something I've been doing recently after I hand wash my items is putting them in the washing machine on the spin cycle only, because the spin cycle gets all the heavy water out, and then it's easier for me to hang dry or dry horizontally. It depends on the piece. If it's something that's bigger, like a sweater or something like that, and you hang it up while it's wet, it can stretch out because the heavy water will weigh it down, and then when it dries it will be permanently stretched out. So think about that also if you're going to hang up your stuff to dry, or even just hang it up to keep in your closet, because it can also stretch there as well. So if you don't care, then it doesn't matter. But for some things like sweaters that are heavy and you don't want them to get stretched out, you can dry them on a horizontal surface. Yeah, but putting it in the spin cycle is good because it gets most of the water out, and then it will air dry a lot faster. Yeah, I think those are my main mistakes that I made when I started, and things that I would tell beginners to avoid doing those things. But like I said, rules are made to be broken, and if you understand the rules, then you can break them artfully.